this before. I don't know why. I've done some research the other day and I think, those are cool. Those are like sort of, they're large pieces of wood in people's windows, which have obviously been smashed and broken into. It's that kind of shot where someone's sort of boarding out the windows before they get them fixed. And it's for an alarm company called, is it ADT? Right?
Yeah.
So, which I think is brilliant. It's such a clever idea. So did you do it for real and then took the shots of them as well? Or how did it work? Yeah.
So I mean, the idea was if people have been broken into, you do see those boarded up windows, then why not try and use that as the media space? It didn't get used as much as we hoped because we were calling around, the companies that board up the windows going, can we collaborate? And I think a lot of people got nervous about advertising the fact that they'd been broken into.
Yeah.
So it ran, a couple of times, but we were phoning around everywhere going, hey.
No, it's such a clever thing. I mean, did the client? It's just one of those things. It just stands out so much. You could have just said, we'll do a poster with it in, because it's not as good. It's just not as good as. I love the typography as well. In a way, it's just slightly. It's got a sort of slightly off skew look to it,
and it's been copied. It's been copied now a few times. There was a garage entry for one of these kind of zip car companies in Germany in Cannes last year in outdoor. And it was just, same concept, but no need for the garage anymore. It's now the band spot, or there's somewhere that you tinker with metal workshop or something. So it's not a garage for your car anymore. It's an extra room for your house. And, it's the same thing sprayed on. It's that this is the band's practice area.
I mean, I think that's what's the interesting thing about out of home, that it doesn't have to be just your traditional, paper posted up on a site. I think, we were talking about Belford and Roberts earlier, they're amazing economists out of the light bulb. It's, you can elaborate on top of that and, do ambient ones or special builds or whatever. There's so many things that you can do with it. It hasn't just got to be, on paper.
No, I mean, that's what I love about the medium, the fact that a cracking brilliant billboard such as your 1830 is as valid on this sort of series as stuff like this. I mean, outdoor for me and Dan is everything. It's great if it's on paid for legit media spaces, but it can equally be something which is just a stunt or something happening, because that's the space where, like you're saying, Mike, earlier, where you go, right, that's cool, I'm going to take a photo of that. And that spreads like wildfire across social, which is the currency now.
Outdoor's been going through a rebrand for years, and it's kind of now known as out of home, and on all media plans, out of home. And I think that allows it to be more than just a billboard or a poster. I think the fact that it's just not in the home, it can be anything else. And it's probably a nice segue to the Calm Project 84, because it's a non-standard space that we're talking about, kind of looking at the outdoor space, the out-home space, and going, what can we do to grab people's attention and to get them to learn something? And that does it, because it makes, for the same reason that people don't want to have it in their windows, it makes other people read it, and that's I
mean, it was quite interesting with that brief in particular, because ADT obviously do burglar alarms, but this was like a specific monitoring system where you've got cameras and things. Which at the time, it was a super tough brief, because you're like, hold on a second, we can't really slag off burglar alarms, but then I don't know how we do the monitoring system without doing that. So that was like the only truth that we could really think of is you hear burglar alarms all the time. Yeah. Probably 5, 6, 7 a day or whatever, and you just ignore them. You walk past, you don't even give a second glance to them. And that's where the idea was born out of that, basically, that nobody batters an eyelid now or notices them. So.
It's interesting. It's an interesting fact. When I read it, I was thinking, if I had an alarm, I would definitely buy into that. We should seg next, just before we do Calm, into GE, because I imagine that's an even bigger kind of unusual use of, as Dan saying, out of home. This is an enormous project where you actually grew flowers to evoke artists. Was that the Van Gogh? Yeah. So could you just give us a quick bit of background to how this came about? Because this is pretty unusual. Did they ask for such an audacious thing, or did you give it to them? Or
the brief was an absolute shocker. I don't think anybody wanted to work on. So it was basically the National Gallery had got they installed these new turbines or energy generators or something, and that was basically the brief, talking about their green credentials.
Right, quite right.
And whilst they were having them installed, they'd got all this scaffolding up, and they obviously had to board the front of the gallery, so people couldn't see what was going on behind it, basically. So that was the canvas that we got to work with. We're like, what the hell are we going to do with that? Because it's green and talking about, making the planet better and blah, blah, blah. We're like, well, why don't we do something with the poster itself? Why don't we try and make a green poster? So we'll do like a living wall. So that's where the idea came from.
And did they reckon on how big a number it was going to be? Was it
No, it was brilliant actually, because we were doing it with another team called Mike and Bert, and they'd also got a TV ad on the table.
Right.
So the client's attention was all on the TV. It's like, that's where the money's going. And Mike and I were just happily trotting along,
growing a few plants,
doing this type of thing. But,
doing green fingers.
It was quite interesting because we thought with an idea, we'll just get like a nursery on board and they can grow a few plants and it'll be a piece of piss. It's not a problem. And this nursery that we got was actually down on the south coast or whatever. And we used to go down every couple of weeks on the train to see these plants being grown. But it was so technical. They'd got every single plant dotted on this computer like matrix. So they could work out obviously the colour that it would flourish into, the size of it, the spread of it.
Wow.
So when it was planted.
And a sun track of where it was going, so they knew what it was going to get.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But it had to be quite accurate. Obviously, like we obviously needed to know what the plant would be like once it'd grown, because it had to depict this image, this Van Gogh painting so accurately. And then it was in Trafalgar Square. I can't remember how many months it was. It was like 3 months or something like that.
It's brilliant.
It was up a while, but it did really well for them.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's brilliant what you can get out of a brief. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to be given just some like boarded up side of a building. You're like, oh, Jesus.
Let's use
plywood.
We talked about, in the last series, we talked about Fresh Salads, the McDonald's piece in Chicago that used the same board as the sundial. And it was, they had this NASA scientist doing all of the sun tracking to make sure they were telling the right time for the sundial and make sure that those salads were getting enough sunlight and watering to make sure they lived over the campaign period. I'm sure it's the same with this, with your horticulturalists.
Yeah, because when it first went up, it was just green.
Oh, it was awful. We're really putting this up.
This is not going to work.
Well, because it was waiting for the...
Yeah, so then they were all kind of,
You're standing there going, bear with us.
Yeah.
It'll be all right.
Give us a month.
But yeah, it was all undercover, and they were like, this is very, very green. But yeah, luckily they knew their plants better than we did. Anyway.
We should move on to Adam and Eve, and by the way, all the brilliant work you do. I know we're not talking about it, but we're obviously we love all the other stuff you're doing. But this is a thing about Billboards, so we're very appreciative of all the other stuff. But I think we really want to talk about Calm and Project 84, which has obviously been massively awarded and talked about. And I was telling you earlier, I'm always playing your case study video to clients and creatives to try and get them into this sort of space of not seeing things in boxes, but what you can do with the outdoors. So could you just give us a tiny bit of background again about how it came about? Was it an existing client, Adam and Eve, or was it something you two found, or how did it come around?
No, it was a new client to Adam and Eve, but they approached Adam and Eve saying, we'd love to work with you. As an agency, we're a fairly small charity, and we don't have much money, but we don't want to act and behave like a charity.
Right.
We want to do stuff that gets talked about, that people notice, and all respect to Simon Calm, and he's been true to that. he knows what's working. He was at BBH or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, is he the ex-ad guy?
Yeah. And you know, and they've been brave and you know, and true to their word. So it was always a great brief. But you know, again, we actually wrote 2 campaigns and presented 3 routes to them, and Project 84 was one idea,
right?
And we did another one which was using actual suicide notes,
Right.
Which we really liked as well, and then a third route, which was using faces of men that had taken their own lives, and they said that you know that would be almost impossible to pull off because nobody really wants to advertise the fact of who they are and the sensitivity with families and stuff. But they said we love these 2 ideas.
Right.
The other one was much more kind of achievable within the time, so we went with the suicide notes.
So the one we're talking about, just so everyone's clear, is the it's Project 84. 84 stands for the number of male suicides a week in this country. And what you guys did is you created 84 mannequins on the roof of ITV's breakfast show.
Yeah. I mean, that and the reason being was we obviously knew doing something like this is great, but you straight away were like, we need some kind of partner to make sure we get eyeballs on this and get some reach.
Can I go back a minute? Sorry. So did you come up with the idea for the mannequins and then or did you, it's a kind of, it's a bit like Antigone, the figures that are around. How did he get to the idea first? I'd be really interested. Did you say, let's work with that number?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the number, and also, when we did this, suicide and mental health wasn't that talked about.
Right.
And that was the whole point of this, is we need to get people talking about it. And, and to think that 84 men are killing themselves every week is pretty mind-blowing figure. But, I think was you get so bombarded with facts and figures every day that you become a little bit immune to them. And the idea was like, how do we actually make that number mean something? And, visually, when you see 84, it's a lot more powerful than someone saying to you, the number 84. So it was trying to find a way of really bringing that fact home in a really kind of powerful way, which is kind of how we got to doing it this way.
It's so striking, but it's also, it's that thing, because you question what are they, look at them up there, it's pretty clear what they're about to do, but then you don't see their identities, because the point you said earlier, I remember hearing more and more about it. And when I saw it just as a piece of graphic image, I thought it was absolutely startling and incredible. And I would have taken a photo of it and shared it. And then I saw the story behind it. Then every one of those people, you got the family to be involved in it. And that really choked me up. And I started thinking, oh my God, you've not just done, hey, let's just put 84 people up, mannequins up. You actually then delved deeper. How did you get those people as a result of the initial idea, or did the client say, we can have some families involved if you want? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, the clients, Karma, really involved with families, especially those that are bereaved. So they've got this whole database and contact details of all these different families. And at the time, we were like, it would be really lovely if there was people actually behind these figures, as opposed to they're just random, statues, so to speak. So we spoke to Simon, and at the time we were really nervous, because we were like, we don't know how our families will react if we go and say, look, we know that your son has committed suicide or whatever, but we're doing this project, would you want to be involved? And pretty much every family went, count us in. So then it was a matter of, we'd got the artist, this guy called Mark Jenkins from the States, who, that was his thing. He does these figures that tend to be hooded, and then the hoods are closed really tight, which worked perfect for the idea about people that are suicidal tend to retract and go into themselves and become quite insular. So that his style worked perfectly. Yeah. And then it was a matter of, look, we're going to have these workshops, these open days for families to come down, and if you want to participate, then amazing. And and making the actual sculptures, it's an amazing process where you basically just wrap people in sellotape.
Right.
He's got this special like packing tape, but you basically just wrap people in tape and then you cut them out of it and stitch it all together.
The reason is because you get the nuances of everyone's body, so you get different shapes, sizes, big, tall,
That's amazing.
and that's why they look so realistic rather than sort of kind of shop mannequins. You don't quite get that nuance of they don't look real, and it was important that these look like real.
Yeah, they have their own individuality. And did you wardrobe them as well with that?
Yeah, that was all done over a couple of weeks. It was basically the budget. We had £100,000 to do it, which was paid for by a grooming brand, Harry's. They came on board and said, "Look, we want to do this with you, so we'll pay for the whole thing." So they gave us £100,000. But even that, it didn't stretch too far. So it was basically going around just buying cheap clothes from
charity shops,
bargain basements and charity shops and things like that. But it was a good way of doing it because we didn't want uniform. 10 hoodies all the same because it would have looked forced and a bit fake. So each one's individual.
So then at what point, sorry, just going back to the sort of partnership with the ITV, how did that come about? Because do you think, I suppose you could have done it, you could have just put them up anywhere and made them like kind of like random Anthony Gormley type things, or do you think at that moment that was when you hit the kind of touch to light speed going, oh my God, we're going to be with a partner, national television? How did that, was that brokered by guys at Adam and Eve, or was it?
It was Simon, wasn't it? He was, look, we've got a partnership, we've got a really good relationship with ITV. In particular, this morning with Phil and Holly. And he's on their couch quite regularly talking about the issue of men's mental health. And he said, I'm going to go to ITV and propose this to them, see if they want to get involved. And straight away they were like, brilliant. We want to do a whole week of men's mental health, and we'll kick it off with this. This is on the opening day on the Monday, and then we'll follow up with various families coming on the sofa and talking about their experiences and blah, blah, blah.
And then also, often the use of their building as where we can put it, because, originally we were like, it's so important where you put these.
I was going to say,
to really kind of, not only get eyeballs on, but also have impact, and kind of on the South Bank, kind of the perfect position.
Well, that there's that. I love these sort of weird conversations, things that you get involved in advertising. Did you have to get permission and to put something on top of a building, and did you have to work out wind speeds and all this kind of caper?
If you could see all the scaffolding behind it, it's ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the statues were going nowhere. It was crazy.
And it was quite an interesting build, because obviously we couldn't start putting them up one by one. So it was all built on a system of scaffolding that we could literally, the morning of doing it, just kind of have them kind of come up to the thing. So they were all kind of on these.
But how can you? It's so well art. I mean, this shot we're looking at of the the foreground and the background, you don't see any scaffolding at all. It's very well.
Well, it was interesting actually, because when we first started talking to ITV, because they're in two different buildings, they were only going to give us this one here, which is only 2 stories high.
Oh, no, you want the
so you're straight there. And we were like, if they were to jump off that, you'd probably sprain your ankle. So we said, look, we'd love the tall building. This can't possibly do it. We're moving out that building as well, and there's this issue and that issue and whatever. And we went down and pleaded with them again and said, look, please, can you have this? And at the end, they were like, okay, yeah, you can have both. And it worked out perfectly where on this bottom, the lower building, we had 12 figures, which obviously represent per day. And then we had the remaining figures on the tall bit, and it worked particularly. We couldn't have asked for more, really.
Was it always going to be on the one building, or originally was it sketched as 84 buildings in London?
No, it was always going to be on one. Again, just to really bring home that number.
Seeing 84 in one day,
Yeah, because I suppose if you put them in different ones, because I was thinking, like, well, if you hadn't got this deal with ITV, would you have dotted them around Britain in different places? Would that? But then that slightly dilutes, like you're saying, if you see them.
It's the image, it's that. So, and this gets used quite a lot now. And think it's quite good. It's like, what's the image that's going to go on the newspaper, or what's the image that
key visual.
Well, what's the image that people will post?
Yeah.
And then you make that powerful, and then you've got a very powerful idea.
Yeah. Especially like if you, I worked on a thing called Truth Project, which was just speech bubbles. And this was this thing I kept showing and saying, we want to do this. And we never got that far. But the amount of, that's why I was interested about scaffolding, because we were trying to fly these enormous empty speech bubbles on the top of buildings. And we had to talk to air traffic controllers and wind and what was legal. It's a huge amount of stuff that goes from, that little sketch on your pad going, I'll be all right. Yeah. And then you just think the armies of people and stuff you have to do to get all the way around then to someone going, that's a good image, I'm going to share that. It's interesting, isn't it? The amount of hidden stuff you do for. But if you do get it right, I suppose, and you do get that shareable image, you'll make the front page of the Standard, or you'll be trending.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was one of those projects where all the stars just seemed to align, and
sounds like
it just all happened.
I mean, it does sound like it's such an immensely emotive thing, and like you're saying, Mike, it's probably 3 years ago, when I think we all think we talk about it all the time now, but we probably didn't. We still probably don't enough. But at that point, I think I remember hearing about Calm and thinking, that's a new thing. And I think when I was at JWT, someone was telling me about it. And I said, that's quite interesting. I never really thought about that.
I mean, it was interesting that on the back of this, they wanted to get signatures to get it into Parliament. So Parliament would have to talk about it, basically.
Right.
And the figure that they were aiming for, I think, was 14 or 40,000. Anyway, he got 250,000 signatures in a week.
Brilliant.
And then off the back of that, obviously, it was discussed in Parliament. And 4 months later, they appointed the first minister for prevention of suicide, which was amazing.
It's a victory, yeah.
I think of all the work we've done, whether it TV posters or whatever, I think this is probably one that we're probably the most proud of, because of the fact that happened.
It's led to social change. It's led to the conversation continuing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that puts all the other sort of awards and gongs into the sort of shade of it when you feel like you've done something like that. Yeah,
I mean, they've got. It's so technological as well. All these different call lines. So Calm have got a call line that basically they've got some kind of AI technology in there that can actually assess whether the conversation that they've had have prevented a potential suicide, because they can work out the severity of the call and certain nuances in people's voices and blah, blah, blah. And they did some kind of calculation, but in the first 3 months, it saved, 269 lives or whatever. Now, when you start hearing things like that, straight away, you're like, Christ, I'm so happy we've done this. And actually, the job we do can actually mean something rather than we're flogging yogurt or beer or whatever it is. So, it's particularly nice.
Yeah, that's good. It's amazing.
It is fantastic work. And I think that, we're pushing time, but I think kudos to you both for specifically that, and it doesn't matter what awards and medal it wins, but the lives that it saves and the conversations that have continued since is the real reward.
Thank you, cheers.
So if that's the best one in the book, and the best one in the career, there's got to be the ones that didn't happen, and that's one of the questions we ask everyone. What's the bottom drawer idea that you always wanted to do, but either client wouldn't buy or you were too scared to put it in front of them?
Are you still waiting for it now? Still don't want to reveal it.
Probably the follow-up to this that we can't talk about.
Well, that's fine.
One to come.
It was happening. It was like a week away before then lockdown.
Well, maybe. Well, maybe there's chance. I mean, that's something actually we were going to ask about the front was is there anything outdoory coming from Adam Eve that you'd be excited about? But maybe we don't want to jinx it, so maybe we'll.
There are a few good bits in the pipeline. That could be good.
Oh no, I hope so. I mean, it is that thing for us. We love seeing the good stuff. There's one other one we liked. I think TBWA did, which was like right at the beginning of lockdown. It was like a line: "Cancer is still working from home" or something like that. So that was real.
Yeah.
That was a great line. But we always ask one other thing, which is a sort of kind of tips bit, or little hints to people who are writing posters, whether they're young or just other creatives. Do you have any sort of things you sort of live by, or any sort of?
We talked earlier about the kind of the junior creative teams coming in, and you're not seeing enough of their poster work or their out of home work in their books. Is that what would for young creative teams and people wanting to get into the industry, listening to this, what's the tip to make sure their book is elevated in the stack that you're seeing?
I think it's what Mike touched on earlier. I think just obviously use what you're given and don't complain about what you've been given. So if you're given the side of a building, then use that as a positive. Don't look away and go, oh Jesus, I've got to use this. It's not even a proper poster or whatever. You go, there's still an opportunity there. You can do something interesting with it, and then have a look at what everyone else is doing and try and do the complete opposite. I know that's easy to say and it's so cliched, but it's the trick. If everyone's doing headlines, do visuals. If everyone's doing visuals, everyone's doing traditional, do non-traditional. Do you know what I mean? Always try and do the opposite, and you'll get somewhere interesting, I think.
Yeah, and I have sympathy for young creative teams, because I think a lot of people see out of home as maybe being old-fashioned, and it's like, well, let's do this tech thing here or this filter here and stuff like that, and it's it doesn't have to be, like you say, like it doesn't have to be a poster site. It's anything outside, and anything that stops people in their tracks and gets attention, and that is as relevant today as it's ever been. So I wouldn't shy away from it. I think it's probably more exciting than it's ever been.
That's a good.
And then obviously simplicity, I think. Distill the idea down to its bare bones, because I think a lot of the stuff that you see, there's almost too many messages that you're trying to get across, or it's overcomplicated, or the headlines are long-winded or whatever. Just try and distill it down to its bare bones.
And I think I've noticed in the last hour is don't give up. Some of the things you've said, some things have been put in your way, and you've gone, right, well, we'll think about that. I think that's a nice thing to end on. If you're going to do something great, you have to, you got to go for it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming in again.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks for having
us. Brilliant chat.
It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, that was brilliant. I'm really annoyed. I really wanted to say to Mike,
can I have a job?
No, although that would a couple of weeks, you never know. Are we still living the dream? So hopefully, Mike, you're listening to this. So did you spot it on some of my
things? It was on everything.
Yeah, when we were in Cannes one year and we'd all won golds, and it was a lot of fun, and we were on a yacht somewhere in the bowels of this yacht, and we genuinely said to each other, we're living the dream, and there was no sense of irony. We genuinely thought that. So Mike, hopefully we are, but it was dreamlike, wasn't it, with those two?
Yeah. Very good. Amazingly creative pair, and they've been around the world with their work. So
and just the whole Calm thing, the Project 84 was fascinating. We could have gone on and on that.
A whole thing on the power of out of home to do good, and that campaign stands.
There's an idea. We should do that.
Stands proud.
No, it's great. So really pleased about that, and more power to those guys.
Yeah, it's good. Well, see you again, or speak to you again.
Well,
when a week?
Yeah, if you want.
All right,
and not do much. Yeah.
All right. Are you busy?
Well, I've done the shed, so I'll be all right.
How's the bread?
I'll bring you some. Do you want some?
Yeah, I do.
John? No? Yeah, okay, right. Shit, I've got stuff to do now.
Is it gluten-free? Because I'm kind of intolerant.
End it.
I'm not really.
Bye.
Bye.